Hey friends, welcome to the Angie Ambrosetti Show. Let her out to play. I'm Angie, your host, a teenage mom turned multi-six-figure earner, married to the same man for nearly 40 years. I'm a homeschooling mom of 7 and totally unqualified, at least on paper, but wildly called by God. Remember, He doesn't call the qualified, He qualifies the called. Here, we are going to talk about it all. Healing from the hard stuff, building a business with heart, raising a big family, walking in faith, and finally breaking free from the lies that said we weren't enough. So if you're ready to stop playing small, shake off the doubt and the shame, and step fully into who you were created to be, girl, you are in the right place. Let's go. Hey friends, welcome back to the Angie Ambrosetti Show. I am so pumped for today. And I know, I say this every single episode, but literally, if I am not pumped to the guests that I have coming on, you guys would be like, oh my gosh, this is going to be so boring. I can promise you this episode is not going to be boring. I'm so excited for you guys to hear from my sweet friend, Marcia Tate. We just recently met via another podcast. I was listening to another friend's podcast. She was a guest, and I was like, oh my word, I have got to connect with this girl. And I say girl because we are both girls, right? No matter how old we are the girls. And she told me when we got on today, she's like, when I heard you say, girl, this podcast is for you. She knew that she wanted to be a guest on my podcast as well. So I'm super excited to introduce to you guys today my friend Marcia Tate. She is a mom of 5 boys, ages 30 down to age 9. She has been married to her high school sweetheart for almost 29 years, or this year is 29 years. She is an entrepreneur. She got pregnant with her first baby at the age of 14, and she is an advocate for teen moms. So, welcome to our show today, my friend.
Thank you for having me.
You are so welcome. Well, I would love for you to just start kind of from the beginning and take us back to that tender age of 14 and what was happening in your life.
So around the age of 14, I was living in Detroit, Michigan. I was raised by a single mom. It was myself and 3 other sisters. And so um, I thought I had a little boyfriend. And so that little boyfriend and I broke up because my dad didn't like him. And so I was single for 2 months. And so I was complaining to my friend who lived next door, and I was like, "Oh, I hate like this conversation at 14 years old. I hate being single. Like I need a boyfriend. Like I'm really sick of being by myself. Like I like being in a relationship. I like the feeling of being that lovely little feeling of being like part of a couple." And so
Sure. You love the security, right?
right. And so my friend, we're sitting outside on her porch. It was April 10th, 1994. And so we're sitting on the porch, and she tells me, well, I dare you to talk to the first person that walks down the street. And so the first person who comes down the street is my husband. And so I knew my husband because I met him when I was 11 in the neighborhood. I had just moved to the neighborhood. His grandma lived down the street from my house. And so from time to time, he would walk from his home to his grandma's home, and he would always have to pass my house to get there. And so we have like a mutual friend. The mutual friend would always bring him by, and I would always call him a crummy boy, like he was disgusting, like he was gross. And so I didn't like him then. I was 14. And I was younger, like 11, then when I met him. But when I was 14 and he came walking down the street, he had just come back from Florida. And so he would come here every summer to be with his family who was here. And so when he came back, he had this long hair and he had this tan, and he was like shaped properly. I don't know how to explain that, but he had this wonderful like physique. And so when he came past, I was like, okay, I'll talk to him, and I know him. So we literally sat on my porch next door and talked for 12 hours. I remember the day because it was one of my uncle's birthdays, and all the adults, like my aunt, my mom, everybody got together and they went out to celebrate my uncle. And so for 12 hours, I could have company, but he could not come in the house. And so we sat on the porch and we talked from the time they all left until they came back late at night. And then by the time he was to leave, we had discussed our entire lives and things that we had been through since the last time I saw him, which was probably like a year before. And so we had discussed our whole lives and what we wanted for our futures, and that we should probably be a couple. And then at the end of the night, when it was time for him to leave, I just kind of like looked at him and told him, we're gonna get married. Like, you're gonna be my husband. And he laughed hysterically in my face. He laughed so hard that a little spit flew out of his mouth and landed on my face. And I told everybody that he spit on me. He's so excited that he laughed, right? And so when I tell people this story to this day, the story was that he thought I was full of it, but I was right. So yeah, next July marks 30 years that we've been married, 31 as parents. And like I said, I've known him since I was 11, which is crazy to think of the numbers because I have a 9-year-old. And so even when I talk to my 16-year-old now, when we go places, I tell him he always has to present himself and like show up properly because he never know if he's going to meet his wife. And he's like, come on, mom, like it's too much too soon. I was like, but you don't know. So you always put your best foot forward. Right. Exactly. And so we had our first child at 15. Then we ended up living together with my family until about 18 or 19. And then at 19, we moved out and got our own place. And then we had our second son. And then that's kind of like when I was going to school, working. Some things occurred and we ended up moving to Florida around when I turned about 21. And so we've been raising all of our kids here in the Sunshine State ever since. And so I love it here.
Yeah. Well, I just want to go back to two things that I was thinking of when you were talking is that like most men, like they love positive words of affirmation. And when you were like, oh, he's gross, he's whatever. I was thinking, okay, that's not the way because that's not giving him positive words. But anyways, you changed that up. And when he walked by and that physique and all the things, it was like lighten you up, girl. Right. Yes. And then I love when you said that you were right. And it just cracks me up because our husbands, like they're always the ones who want to be right. But when you said you were going to be my husband someday, that took me back to a place when the first night that my husband and I met, which was on a blind date, he actually told me that he loved me that night.
Oh, I love it.
And I was like, and he said it in Italian because he's Italian. And I didn't know, like, I was like, what? And he goes, well, that means I love you. And I'm like, you know me. And he's like, but I know that I love you. And so it's just
men know when they know.
They know.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we didn't stay together always back in those days. We had like several months in between when he had broken it off with me because he thought I was a little bit wild back in the day. And I probably was, but then the Lord reconciled all those things. But it's just interesting. Like you knew and my husband knew. So there's some good connection right there.
I like to tell him I was a prophetic child. Like I knew what it was. And so, but the thing about it with me is that usually at the beginning of a relationship, God will show me like if it's a lifetime thing, if it's momentary, or if it's like for a season. And so I usually can discern like if that's what it is. And when that was the very first time that I ever said it out loud, like I just knew he was lifelong. And so now I kind of like tell people when I meet them, like, especially if they feel like they're going to be my lifelong people, like I gravitate pretty quickly. So, yeah.
Well, I've heard it said before, I'm probably not going to say this exactly right, but people come into our lives for a situation, for a season, or for a lifetime. And so we never know, what the Lord is doing and why he's bringing people in our path, but we know he always has a plan.
Right.
The good news. So what was it like for you at 14 years old to find out that you were expecting a baby?
So that same boyfriend that I broke up with before I met my husband happened to be visiting and stopped by my house one day. And so my husband was driving past and saw the ex-boyfriend on the porch. And then he decided to come back after the guy left and we broke up. And so we broke up and then he moved back to Florida. And it was like a few weeks later that I realized that I was pregnant. And so I didn't want to tell anybody because I knew that my mom was going to kill me. And he was the first person that I told. And his thing was that until you go get a test from a doctor, I'm not going to believe that you're pregnant. So he probably stayed in Florida for, I think it was 4 months pregnant when I actually told my mom. So he was here for like that amount of time. And so by the time I actually told my mom and they kind of confirmed everything, he came back and then he actually stayed in Florida until I had the baby. And then he came back to Michigan. But the whole time when people would ask me like, so how did you get pregnant? What happened? And I'm like, yeah, so me and my boyfriend, XYZ, got birds, bees, things happened. And so now I'm pregnant and he's going to come back and we're going to get married. And everybody told me like, I'm sorry, sweetie, but that's not how it works. Like he's never coming back. You're not going to get married, all these things. And so I didn't really feel too discouraged. I just felt sad that people thought that that was my narrative, and that
Yeah.
a lot of people said it. And so, but I would talk to him often on the phone, and so we knew what our plan was, and so we really talked it through a lot. I never really doubted for a second that he wasn't coming back, because he felt like my life person, like lifelong person. And
Yeah.
so, but at the time, I'm going to tell you the truth. There was a movie called Another Girl on the IRT, and there's this movie about a girl from like New York. And so in the movie, the girl gets pregnant, and she gets pregnant and doesn't tell her family. And what she does is she goes and buys 2 pairs of every outfit that she normally has. And then as she gets bigger, she just wears the bigger clothes. So nobody ever notices that she's pregnant. And then
Yeah.
she has the baby, and then she ends up, she has the baby while she's like at her boyfriend's house. And then goes and throws the baby in the garbage. And then she ends up, spoiler, she goes to get the baby back, and then she like raises the baby, and it's all like happy ending. But it's just, she explains you like how hard it is to be a teen mom and what it's like. And through the whole movie, she's talking to the camera about like how crazy it is, and how much pain, like, so she's educating people who are probably in the same situation. So I'm thinking to myself, yes, I'm going to hide it like the girl in the movie, and I'm not telling anybody until I have to. And so when I finally told my mom at 4 months pregnant, she just basically said, when that baby comes out, I'm going to kill you. And so my mom had 4 girls, and my first baby was the first son. And so when he came out, she was so enamored that she forgot the death threat, and that she was so in love with him that she just didn't care about what I considered like my greatest mistake at the time. And so everybody, not everybody, but a lot of people from my family and different people who would come across my mom and everything, when she first heard that I was pregnant, she cried. And she said that she thought she had failed as a parent. And I internalized that. And I was like, well, there was nothing she could really do. Granted, she didn't have like her eyes on me at all times, and she didn't know what I was into or what I was doing. And so, I just thought she internalized it, but it really wasn't her fault. And so as an adult now, on the other side of that, where as a youth I would think that this was like my biggest mistake, or the greatest shame that I had in my life was having a kid at such a young age. Now he's my biggest blessing. And so he's the I'm gonna go a little bit deeper with you. And so when I say that he is my biggest blessing, I suffered some trauma, some sexual trauma as a child from a family member. And until the family member found out that I was pregnant by my husband, that's when the trauma stopped.
Okay.
And so before that, I was suicidal. Before that, I just wanted to die. Like, I just didn't want to be here, because I just felt like that couldn't be life. My husband was the only person that would always that would show me like the love of Christ. Like, he would show me even as a child. Like, he's just like a tender-hearted person, and so he would always love me the way that I needed to be loved or nurtured in a way. And so when I say we raised each other, there's not no understatement to that. But so when the family member found out that I was actually pregnant, the family member stopped all the things. And so when I say that that kid saved my life, I mean it like on different levels. And so even now to this day, because I probably didn't give him enough love and hugs as a child, every time I see him, like, he'll walk in this door in maybe like an hour, and he'll come straight to me. He gives me a hug, and he's like a squishy little bear too. And so he gives me this great hug, and then he tells me he loves me. How's my day? If he calls me, he's like, hello, beautiful. And so he's the best motivation. And then we're only like 15 years apart. So he thinks he's like my brother, and we fight a lot, but he's great.
Yeah, I love that. And I've talked to other women who have expressed that same thing.
Mhm.
And it's hard to, I know, like, we didn't talk about that before we got on here.
Yeah. Yeah.
And honestly, like, there's other women who haven't been able to express that because there's so much shame and there's pain behind that. But I love how you said that, and like, obviously he saved your life.
Yeah.
It's your greatest blessing, because that trauma and that abuse, it stopped. And what a blessing that is. I don't know if you listened to my podcast from the first woman that I interviewed. She was actually my high school best friend, and we did a second episode together because after the first episode, she decided she wanted to talk about her suicidal attempts that she
Mhm.
had actually made, because she felt like it could help some other women, and she's had people reach out to her. since then. And I think it's so important to, to be honest and open, because we just never know who's out there struggling with something like that, whether it's, the sexual abuse that's taking place, or the suicidal attempts, or even just the thoughts, because that can turn, as you know, very quickly.
So the crazy thing about it all is that 4 years ago, I started a business. It's my second business. And I knew how to do everything corporately, and I knew how to show up because I've been in the corporate world for years. And so when I got everything polished in the way that it was supposed to be, when it came time to talk in front of people, I cowered. And I didn't know why. So I really had to do a lot of soul searching and unraveling and praying of like these thoughts and the feelings. And it was that as I was talking in a boardroom full of people, I would wonder if they knew my secret shame, if they knew that I was abused, if they knew that I was just a teen mom out here acting like a boss or an entrepreneur out here, like I knew what I was doing. And it really hit me that I was holding myself back, and I was suffering from imposter syndrome. And I had all this shame and guilt built up around the fact that nobody knew my whole story. So I really started talking about the abuse maybe like 4 years ago in public. And so the more I talk about it, the less of an effect it has on me. And so I've been on podcasts talking about it before. And the reality is that it happened to more than one family member. And so we've all been able to kind of like talk about it together and heal
Yeah.
together as a family.
Yeah. Oh, that's
Yeah,
awesome. And I was recently listening to Ed Milet on a podcast, and he was talking about how, like, our past story, like, it doesn't have to define who we are now, but
true.
who better to help someone who used to be just like us than us. Like, the person that we used to be, like, we can help that woman, that young girl, whatever, whoever the Lord puts in front of us. And I love that, because I feel like today, in today's society, people don't always talk about those things, and they live in the shame. I lived in the shame for a long time, that I
Yeah.
was, I was 19. It's not like I was, super young. I was almost 20 years old. I lived in the shame of that. I lived in the shame I don't have a college degree. I lived in the shame I'm not good enough, all the things, but it's not who I am now. I just
Right.
it's it's sort of a platform to help those other women who are struggling and dealing with all of those kind of things. So I'm sure that by you sharing and being on other podcasts in the past, that you've been able to really encourage and uplift, help other women break free from all those chains that really hold them down.
And the thing is, we have an idea of what we are supposed to do in life and who we are. But when you sit back and really, when you live enough years and you get to kind of where we are, and you're able to kind of like look at where you are now and look where you've come from, and you can analyze the fact that a lot of the things that you've gone through really have set you up for where you are now. I say that because when I was younger, when I was like 11, I used to have like these business meetings with my cousins and everything. And we would sit down and talk about business and like just starting business. And if we could start businesses, what would we do? I was
Yeah.
hooked on big business as a child, which is weird because it was a crazy movie. But it was just the fact that women in the boardroom and women working jobs, I thought it was like amazing. And so I would always dream about that. And then when I would watch Shark Tank, I would always write the people letters and encourage them because I was so excited for their journey, especially the women entrepreneurs, because that's my heart. And then I started this business a couple years ago, helping moms and women who wanted to start businesses. And when I thought about it, I was literally starting a business that was going to help the 14-year-old me who needed that thing that she had inside to be able to start a business to help her family go from poverty or where they started to where they needed to be. And so when I thought about the fact that my purpose was really tied to all of my pain and all the things that I went through, it was just like, it was mind blowing to me. And so
Yeah.
a lot of times people will find out once they find the thing that they're really passionate and purpose about, that they're really helping the person that they used to be.
Exactly. Yes, and that's the beauty of it all, is that we have the opportunity to help. And in this life, like, what greater gift? Like, all the money in the world wouldn't even suffice to
Mm-mm.
the emotion of being able to help other.
That
Yeah, exactly. The impact of what the story tells. And I honestly, like, when I was younger, I didn't really know teen moms. I mean, there were a couple,
yeah.
but no one that I was really in close, proximity to or in communication with. And the people that the Lord has brought to my path. Most of the people that I've interviewed, I didn't even know. A couple of them I knew prior to starting my podcast, but I think we've done 13 interviews. I didn't know, but I think 2 of them, maybe 3 prior to starting the podcast.
So I work in an organization now called Hope with You Mom, and we help moms who experience crisis pregnancies, help them, live life one day at a time. And so I work in the mentoring portion of it where I get to work with moms daily. And the crazy thing about it is like a lot of the women that I mingle with for business or people that I've been following for years, when I get to learn a little bit about their story, they were all teen moms. And I'm like, it's just crazy to me, like the amount of teen moms that there were, but at the time, like you didn't know, like people
Yeah.
were hidden away, like they wouldn't talk about it as much. And so now on the other side of that, you get to hear these amazing stories of resilience and just the fact that so when I come into contact with a mom who tells me how she feels like she can't run a business because she didn't graduate from school or she doesn't have a degree or she
Yeah.
doesn't know all the things that the guys know in the boardrooms, but if you can run a family, if you can raise the kid, you can run a business.
Yeah.
And so what's harder than creating a life, keeping a life healthy, and just growing a kid successfully or stewarding that life well? And so if you could do that, you could do anything.
Yeah. I 100% believe that because it's my story. I was so caught up in the fact that I didn't have a college degree. And with homeschooling, I was like, oh my, like, how in the world am I ever going to do this? Because I don't have a college degree.
But I love what you said in your podcast about the fact that you didn't have a college degree, but you're birthing all these graduates. Like, how
Yeah.
smart are you that like you are educating children like to college, like from birth to college? Like, it's amazing. But to sit there and think about it that way.
Right. Well, thank you. Because yeah, I had to have a like a switch in my brain, had to go like in a different direction and know that first of all, without the Lord, none of it would be possible.
True.
But I think too, like just my parents were divorced when I was young, and I had this idea in my mind that I was thinking back about what you said in the very beginning when you were like, "Well, I had not had a boyfriend for what would you say,
2
2 weeks
months.
or 2 months?" Okay, 2 months. And, I think that for me, I was looking for like the stability as well because my mom was a single mom, when I for many years, and knowing that I found a man who like all of a sudden he loved me. It scared me at the beginning, right? But then I was crazy about him. And then, we ended up getting married. We were planning to get married before I actually found out I was pregnant. So then that just solidified everything, right? And just like overcoming, breaking the generational curse of divorce and not just my parents, but many relatives along the way. And I just love that so many of the women that I've interviewed, like so many of them are still with the same man that they not all of them, and they all still have really great stories, but I love connecting with those as well that got pregnant young as a teenager and they are still with that husband, and nothing against those who didn't stay, but there are some because most people would say, "Oh, well, you probably felt like this." I don't know, I did, like, is this really gonna work? Like, I'm a teenager. Am I gonna end up staying? Are we gonna stay married? And you're getting ready to celebrate 30 years. I'm celebrating. Of course, I'm quite a bit older than you are, but I'm getting ready to celebrate 37 years in 2 more days.
Right.
And, just having these expansive families and seeing that it can be done.
Yes.
It absolutely can be done.
Yeah, but like back to your point, it can't be done without Christ Jesus.
Right.
Like if it wasn't for him, like we me and my husband were just talking about it today about how many times we've broken up in the last 30 years. And I said, well, technically we've only broken up twice. Well, maybe 3 times if you count when we first got together. And so he was like, yeah, so we have like our makeup babies. And so I was like, well, this kid was a makeup baby, but that one wasn't, but this one was. And it was
Yeah.
like, it's just crazy, like all the things that happened over the years, but like we always go back to our source. And if it's not what God wants for us, then it's just not what we put before us. And so we try to make sure that our kids have that firm foundation, that we keep God as our third strand cord to keep us bound together. And so when people ask us like, how have you been married for so long? I'm like, if you leave it up to us, we would have failed a long time ago. But it's because we put God first. And so we try to steward this thing well.
Yeah. And it's a decision every single day. That's something that my husband and I talk about a lot, that love is a decision.
Yes.
And like you said, like if it were up to us, we would have been a long time ago.
Yeah.
And we've
Open
had,
space.
ups and downs along the way in the marriage because like we weren't as young as you guys, but we were kind of growing up together too, like figuring it out in our, late teens. He was already 20 years old. And so just trying to figure that out.
But when you think about it, your frontal lobe is not developed until you're 25. You've done so many more things like as a teenager than you like most adults haven't done yet. Like the fact that you've developed together, I think probably solidifies that relationship a little bit more. But could you even imagine your kids who are the age that you were when you had kids having kids? Like my 16-year-old would melt. Like, yeah, it's
Yeah.
just, it was different. Yeah.
I think so for sure. And I've because I've homeschooled, I've sheltered my kids more so than I was. And, you know, I have a son that's 17, 20, and 23. Those three are all at home. And I'm like, they are nowhere near ready for marriage, let
Not
alone
even ready to leave the house,
a
let
baby.
alone marriage. Yeah, I just want to keep them all forever. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. So if you were to go back to that age of 14 and you could just speak into someone else at that age, or even now, like, let me change that question. If you could talk to your 14-year-old self, where you are now, if you could go back and talk to her, what is the best piece of advice that you would give her?
Give yourself grace, because we are our worst enemies when it comes to the self-talk. And so a lot of times, a lot of the things that I would stop myself from doing was based on the things that I would tell myself, not based on the story that God was writing for my life, but based on who I thought I was, or who people told me that I was, or what I was even capable of. And so I stopped going to school when I had the baby. And so I went back to college at about 19. I still wasn't ready, so I dropped out. And I didn't go back until I was 30 to get my bachelor's degree. But if I could have, I would have stayed in school to make sure that I was on track. And so, but just to know that anything is possible and that you can do anything that you put your mind to. Don't worry about what people say about you or who they think you are. Just know who you are in Christ, know who you want to be, and take steps to be that person. And so, even as a mom, that journey is yours to create and to develop and to design. And so you can parent like how you see the best version of parents parent, but give yourself grace if it doesn't go that well. But just do your absolute best and you'll be great.
Yeah, that's awesome. So tell me a little bit about this advocation that you do for teen moms. Is that through a church? Is that an organization there about where you live, or what is that?
Yes, so it's an organization that was birthed through Calvary Chapel of the Palm Beaches, and now it's its own entity. It's called Hope with You, Mom. And so they originally started by helping women who experienced crisis pregnancies who walked away from the abortion clinic and decided to keep the baby. They gave them prenatal classes, or they would help them understand what it's like to raise a baby, feed a baby, all the things that you need to know as a brand new parent. And then they would give them a baby shower and celebrate the families and everything, which is amazing. They still do that. But the portion that I operate in is for mentoring. So if you graduate that class and you have a new baby and your baby's anywhere between like 1 and 5, you can come step into the mentoring program and we'll walk out life with you. So if you have we help them set goals every year, and then we walk those goals out. So if your goal is to go back to school or to finish high school or to get a better job, to get your own place, to be independent, we'll help you develop a plan to kind of get to the goal that you personally have, and then we help you walk it out. And we have a lot of amazing volunteers and donors and people who help steward those dreams. And last year we gave away a couple of cars to some hardworking moms. We have a few moms who are in their own places this year. Like, I'm really proud of my girls. And so their ages range now anywhere between 19 and 32. And so, because you're never, our age range is, I think, up between 13 and 35, but you'll find that like even in your 30s, you still need some help sometimes, or you still, especially if you didn't have it as a kid. And so that's
What
what
would-
we do.
what would you say is the average range of age that the women are that come through the organization that you're a part of?
When I first started, it was early 20s.
Uh-huh.
In the last couple of years, it's been late 20s, but after COVID, we see a lot more moms who are older.
Okay.
Yeah, like late
Oh,
20s, early 30s.
yeah. So I have a friend here where I live, and she is I don't know what her title is, executive director of Choices. I don't know if you've ever heard of Choices, but it's pregnancy crisis pregnancy center, similar to what you're talking about.
Yes.
And so I was at their facility a week or two ago, and she was telling me that the average age of woman that comes through is late 20s, early 30s. That's why I was asking, because I wondered if it was kind of the same for there.
So it's tied to the new abortion laws. And
Oh,
so before, the young women were the ones who really had the stigma of like going to get a lot of abortions. And then you wouldn't hear much about the older moms. But then after COVID, when with a lot of them being home and having access, or I don't know, having time on their hands, I don't know how you want to put it or what the case may be. But you find a lot more of the older moms getting pregnant now. And now that abortion is all but banned, excuse me, in certain states, then they have to kind of see it through. And so you see a lot more of the older moms now. And they said the birth rates are going down because people just don't want to deal with all the red tape and things that are happening now in the country. And so they do say that like teen pregnancy rates are going down. And there was a thing that you mentioned before. You said when you got pregnant as a teen, you didn't see a lot of people getting pregnant. So the year that I got pregnant, or like the year after, there was this group of people who in the news who had like a pregnancy pact at a high school where all the girls got pregnant. And then they came out with the show Teen Mom. And then it became fashionable to have a teen pregnancy. But outside of that, I didn't have a lot of friends who had babies.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I remember when I was in high school, there was one girl that I remember um, being pregnant. And you, I mean, I was out of high school when I was pregnant, but I remember her being pregnant in high school. And that's really the only one that I recall. And maybe my memory isn't that great, but I specifically remember one girl. And then of my friends who I graduated with, um, other than one or two people, like I have the oldest child.
Well, I am the same one amongst my friend. I have the oldest kid. And then they used to whisk the moms away to different schools. And so they
Yeah.
put me in a school all day where I used to do exercise. I studied fashion design and I got to sleep for 2 periods. It was crazy.
Huh.
And I'm a like huge geek, so I like the academic part, but
Yeah.
it was the whole time that I was pregnant, I slept and drew clothes, drew pictures all day. It was weird.
Huh.
Yeah.
Well, so speaking of academics, that's one thing I was going to ask you about the organization that you work with. Do you find that a lot of the girls will they go back in school? I love that you said you went back. So did you graduate high school or did you? No. Okay.
No, I didn't graduate high school. By the time I had my oldest, I was in ninth grade, going into 10th grade. And then I just kind of dropped out for various reasons. I had to get a job and work and things like that. And then I ended up going back to get my GED. So I was the youngest person in the state of Michigan to get their GED at the time. And I had to fight with the people to give it to me. So that I was trying to make sure that I got my GED in the same year that I was supposed to graduate high school. And so
Okay.
after that, they kind of raised the age limit. But I got my GED, and then I went on to go to school, and I turned 19 around when we had our second kid. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, that's something to be said too. Like you were the youngest one at the time in the state of Michigan to ever get your GED. So how old were you when you got that?
I had to be about 16.
Okay.
And the funny thing about it is by the time I went to college at 19, me and my husband had already been married for like 2.5 years, and we had our own home and we had 2 kids. I had 1.5. I was pregnant with a baby. And so I go into school and I signed up, and I'm an adult because I'm a teen mom and I'm emancipated at this point. Like I have a whole life. I go in there and sign the paperwork. And when I went to the financial aid office, they politely told me that my husband was my guardian and he had to come sign on my paperwork.
Okay.
And I cried. And I was like, what do you mean? I'm an adult. I have
Yeah.
children. They were like, no, you're still considered his dependent. Like he's your adult. He's your he's the head of your household. I was like, oh my God, what? And
Yeah.
so no matter how far we think we get, there are still things that will show us that like even though you've accomplished all these things, like you still have to follow like the rules of like the land. And so even with that, a lot of our moms who may have like dropped out of school for various reasons, or they find that they have obstacles or don't know what to do, they come to us and then we can help make a plan about how to get back into school. A lot of times they don't go to school because they just think that they can't, or they don't know what steps to follow. And so we'll help them get to the truth and then get signed up. And so we did have a couple of moms who graduated last year with their diplomas. And we do have an excellent organization here called the Life Center and Riviera Beach that will help you go back to school online to get your diploma if you are a single mom or someone who they have guys there also who just needs to go back to get your diploma. So you get your diploma and not your GED, which I feel like is a bigger deal, but you know, it's all valid in college. So
yeah, that's great. Well, I love that you're giving this information out there, because I feel like there probably are, well, not probably, there are a lot of young girls who don't know that there are other options, that you don't have to drop out, or you can get the diploma. One of the ladies that I interviewed, I think she was on last week's podcast, maybe, she was 17. She was going to a Catholic school and she graduated pregnant, even from a Catholic school, which in my mind, I was a little surprised. I was like, wow, they let her stay, which I think is awesome. But I mean, 30 years ago, that wasn't as lucrative of a thing for them to allow that to take place. So I loved that they were able to give her that option.
Yeah, people are still stringent to this day. And so you still have churches that make the moms get up and apologize for being pregnant, unwed. And so it's still like her church was a special kind of, not her, it was her Catholic school was a special kind of school because, you know, in most cases, like I said, they would have like whisked her away to somewhere else where she can go graduate and have the baby without showing the other kids like her situation. And so kudos to her.
Yeah. Well, one of the things I love that she said on the podcast is when she went into like the headmaster, whatever they called it, the nun, the lady in charge. And she said, well, are you planning to have an abortion? And she said, well, no. And she said, well, are you getting married? And she said, no. And she goes, well, what's the problem? Like, you're having your baby, so apparently if you got married, maybe you couldn't stay in, but she ended up marrying the father of her baby. But she graduated 5 months pregnant, walked across the stage and got her diploma at 17.
No, that's everything.
Yeah. So I love that. Well, I am so thrilled that you came on today. And I just want to ask you one more question.
Okay.
Well, I always say one more question. Then I think of things and I'm like, maybe I need one more. Tell us a little bit about the business that you do, because you're an entrepreneur. And I tell you, that is one of the things that I love to talk about, because for me, starting as a teen mom to a multi-six-figure earner, it's all about where you start and on the journey. I'm not finished, but on the journey that you're going to. And I would love for our audience to hear about the entrepreneurship that you're involved in.
Well, it literally is a dream that God kind of placed in my heart about 15 years ago. And so it was around the time that I was still in school getting my bachelor's degree. And I felt like, no, I can't do both things. And then I graduated. I ended up having my last son. And then I'm like, I'm raising a kid. I can't start a business. And then I'm volunteering in this organization. And I'm like, I'm volunteering. I can't start a business. I'm in church volunteering and doing all these things. So I can't start my business. But with the girls, we set goals every year. And every year when they set their goal, I would set my goal. And I realized that 4 years ago, I had set the same goal for like 3 years in a row. And so my mentor challenged me to start my business. She was like, you have all the things that you need to start the business, do what you need to do. And so I initially started my business developing websites for people who needed digital real estate, until I quickly realized that I hated doing it on command. So I like being creative and creating things for people. But when it's like, I want you to create me a site, but I have no idea what it is. And I'm sitting there like, okay, now I'm bored. And so, but a portion of what I was doing was also helping people get their businesses set up, because I found that there were a lot of businesses operating like fully for years that didn't have business plans, that didn't have like actual documentation in the back end. And it was really around COVID when people were trying to get all their documents together to make sure that they applied for their funding and everything, that a lot of people were out here looking and playing the part, but they didn't have all the foundation. And I love the foundational part. And so I kind of pivoted from like web design into business development. And so my company is called Tate Consulting, and I help moms who want to start businesses. And so I do get I do give a portion of that business to my teen moms, where when they come through the program that I work with, they don't pay anything for my services, but I would help them launch their business and get everything set up. And a lot of them have all of these hobbies and things that they do and talents and stuff that they're just like kind of sitting on. And it's like when you're out here in this gig economy, struggling, making this minimum wage, but you have this gift that God has like buried inside of you that's like bursting to come out. Like, it gives me no greater joy than to help them see what it looks like on paper and to just kind of set everything up and go from like an idea to an actual business, full-fledged business. And so that's what I do.
Well, I love that. I love what you said at the beginning. You were like, you had this dream, like you were dreaming that 12-hour conversation that you and your boyfriend at the time had. You were just talking about the things and you were dreaming about what the future might be like, and being able to help other women
Yes.
bring their dreams into reality. Because like you said, if you can be a mom and you can raise an army of kids, maybe it's one or two kids. It doesn't have to be an army. Like,
One is
you can
enough.
do a lot of things for certain.
For sure.
Yeah. And I know, like, that even like gave me, it like pumped me up when I heard you say that. Cause I'm like, yes, we can raise kids. We can do all these things. And it doesn't matter what the credentials are or were from back then. Cause now, like, we've got the credentials under our belt, right? Raising all these kids.
Even if you don't have the credentials and if you're just starting, like, God equips the people that he calls. He doesn't call the people that are equipped. And if he's giving you the authority to do the thing that he has really purposed your life for, then it's your job to strategize a plan and to just launch and to step out on faith and do the thing that he has created you to do. And that's the thing he's going to bless. And that's the thing he's going to get behind. And so for me, I like to see people catch that fire and take off. So
Just go for it.
Yeah.
I know I did a bonus episode a few weeks ago, and that's basically what I was talking about, is just do it. I know that's such a cliche thing that we've heard, like, just do it, but really it's just what you do. You just put your toe to the water. You just get out there and do it. I mean, thinking about Moses parting, God parting the Red Sea, all Moses had to do was just like put his toe up there and did the rest. And you're right. Like, he doesn't call those who are equipped. He equips us along the way. And oh my gosh, have I not seen that in my journey with all these kids, or with homeschooling, or even starting the podcast? Same thing. Like, I was so nervous about it, but then I'm like, okay, what is it I always tell people? Like, you are the best equipped to help the woman you used to be. So go help those women.
And so I am helping moms also who want to start podcasts, because I sit on the phone and I talk to these amazing women and we have such great conversations. And I'm thinking, like, every time I'm on the phone, I'm like, that should have been a podcast. This should have been a podcast. Like, these are great conversations that can help somebody else. And so if you're thinking about starting a podcast, by all means, start the process and get it done. Just record yourself. I have this little microphone that I got from Amazon, and I keep it with me everywhere I go. It's like it's two microphones. They have an adapter so you can plug it into any type of phone, but it's like $15. Sometimes you can find them cheaper than that. I have like boxes of these things because I just like to have them everywhere. But if you just have a thought, if you're on the phone or having a conversation or with a person, you can literally plug it in your phone and record an entire podcast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have one of those and I don't use it enough. It's got the little fuzzy thing on the end, and I'm like, this is the cutest thing. And I don't use it quite enough, but I love that you said that, because that's just such a good reminder. Another thing that you said that took me back for just a minute, when I was younger, and this is hilarious, but I used to think that life was all a soap opera. Because when I was young, I watched soap operas, and I remember walking the streets of like these, well, they weren't really streets, but they were like dirt roads where we lived in Florida. And I would talk to myself, and I literally thought in my mind, didn't understand television. I apparently, because I was like, well, these are just normal people and everything's recorded in life. And so it just reminded me of that, in the fact that you said, just get your little microphone and everything, like all the little clips, because it's in those moments when we're not practicing, or we're not, like I said, when we got started, like, this is just going to be a conversation. So that's why different things are coming up for me and for you, or whatever. Just record those things. I love that you are basically challenging the listeners. Just record those little things, because those are the most impactful, like, non-scripted moments sometimes that we have.
And it's the things that you would think are mundane that can be impactful and powerful for someone else. And so if you have a thought, if God has laid something on your heart, or if you're in the middle of a study and you just want to kind of like get your thoughts out, like just record it. And so it's all content. It's the best kind of content when it's not really scripted, because then it's more authentic and it comes from your gut. Like you say, whatever rises up in you, like that's what we're going to talk about. And so I like to always leave room for the Holy Spirit to do what he's going to do. And so I love it when there's kind of like an agenda for steps to follow, but then we just kind of flow all through it like we're on our own journey. So yeah.
Absolutely. Oh my goodness. This has been so enriching today for my friend. I am just so thankful, and I look forward to many more conversations with you. And if our listeners, well, not if, it's those listeners who are on and they're just listening and they're like, oh my gosh, I need to connect with her. I need to start a podcast, or I want to be an entrepreneur, or I have this dream, or they maybe live in your area in South Florida and they want to find out how they can volunteer or how they can help or get encouragement for those teen moms, or, whatever it might be. How would someone get in touch with you?
If you are looking for the entrepreneurial side, my website is mtateconsulting.com, where you can book a call, discovery call. It's free. We can just get on the phone and dream out loud. And I can help you do whatever it is that you need to do, whether it's starting your business, getting your business plan together, or not booking a podcast, but building out your podcast. But if you are in the South Florida area, we do service Broward, Miami-Dade, Broward, and Palm Beach County, which sounds pretty vast. However, and I think we're in Martin County now, and Port St. Lucie. And so we are serving young moms who are experiencing crisis pregnancies. And if you're out there and you don't know where to go or what to do, and you just need a little help, or you just need somebody to talk to, or somebody to yell at, or somebody to cry on the phone with, then you can go to our website at hopewithyoumom.org. And then you can just kind of reach out there, send an email to our contact email. And most times you'll get me. If not, you'll get our founder, Miss Amy Nelson, but she'll probably direct you back to me anyway, because I'm the people person. I just love having these conversations. So that's the nuts and bolts of it all. But I'll give you my links also, Miss Angie, so that way you can post on your site.
Yes, we will have all of her information posted in the show notes below. So if today's episode encouraged you, or you just felt like a nudge, or you feel like, hey, there's somebody else that needs to hear this, make sure that you share this. Give us a 5-star rating, because that's what helps move the algorithm. Leave a review, reach out to Marsha, find the information that you need so that you can be encouraged and someone else can do the same. Thank you so much, my friend, for being a guest today. I have enjoyed it so much. And like I said, I cannot wait for us to connect on a deeper level.
Me, the same here. You keep being you and keep going out there and saying, girl. I love it.
I don't know if you said this or I was thinking it, but did you say dream out loud?
Yes.
I was like, that's a hashtag all over the place.
Oh yeah.
I love it.
I put that on a shirt.
Yes, I'm a shirt girl. I love shirts.
Me too.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you so much, friend. Thank you, listeners. We appreciate all the feedback. See you next time. That's it for today, friends. Thanks for tuning in with me today. I hope today's episode stirred your soul, sparked your faith, and reminded you that your story is far from over. Keep walking in freedom. Keep showing up bold, and never forget, God doesn't call the qualified. He qualifies the called. Be sure to leave a review, subscribe, or share this podcast with a friend who needs to hear it as well. Until next time, keep letting her out to play, because the world needs your fire.